But we're not looking for returns. We're looking to lock and store our value. And I would say that is what Bitcoin is.
Hey everyone, welcome to Blockchain North, Canada's first blockchain media. Today we're talking to Adam O'Brien, founder and CEO of Bitcoin Well, the world's first publicly traded non-custodial Bitcoin company and initiators of the first Bitcoin ATM in Alberta. Super excited. Before I begin and I introduce or I welcome our guest, if you enjoy this interview or you want to support us, please give us a like if you haven't already. Subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. And make sure you still till the end because I will be asking Adam, as we do for all of our interviews, some of his predictions for 2023. Let's see what he's got in store. Adam, welcome.
My man, thank you so much. You're too kind in that introduction. I appreciate it.
That was actually the most succinct I've done recently. So, but I'm gonna let you speak for yourself. But just want to say it's also great to have a chat with you. The last time we had a great conversation at this rooftop party at the Canadian Blockchain Summit in October, and I remember thinking, darn, why did I not record this? So let's try to see if we can be as good as last time. So I feel like it's a bit hard not to start this interview with kind of the surrounding turmoil. And of course, people may first think about what happened in 2022, but so far 2023 has been equally as bad with, Silicon Valley Bank. And I know that this and the other banking crises, including the one unfolding in Europe, by the way, are not directly related with Bitcoin or with crypto. But I'm wondering first, is Bitcoin's value proposition in any way affected by those events?
I mean, affected, yes, but probably positively, I would say. It's really, really interesting seeing, like, Bitcoin is really treated as a risk asset right now, and probably rightfully so. For the majority of people don't see Bitcoin as savings; they see it more as an investment. But the value prop shines when we see custodians melting down, and for the last decade, we've seen Bitcoin or crypto custodians melt down, but now we're seeing fiat custodians melt down. And this is the first time in 15 years this has happened, right? The last one being 2008. This is, I think, pretty much rivals the 2008 one. I think I saw in '08 it was like $329 billion worth of like bank run assets, and right now it's 310 or like, so it's right in that realm. And you change for inflation, it's probably not as big of an impact, but still the number is significant. But interestingly, and actually I wrote a blog about this on my website adamobrien.ca. You can read about it. CDIC, and the big topic of conversation is this pseudo bailout that the banks are getting down south, and everyone's talking about FDIC insurance and CDIC up here in Canada, and in doing the research for that article, like, we haven't had a bank fail in Canada since 1996. It's been almost 30 years since a bank has failed in Canada, which is good on one hand, but on the other hand, that means an entire generation of bank executives have left, and the learnings from the catastrophe of a meltdown have all disappeared. And that's that's an interesting thing to kind of think about. And then you think about Bitcoin as the other side of it, which is the censorship resistant, the self-custody, rules not rulers. And yeah, I think absolutely the value prop for Bitcoin shines in moments like this.
So one thing we like to do in our interviews is to ask our interviewees to define, in this case for you, it will be Bitcoin. And I'm going to ask you to provide two definitions. So the first definition is you're speaking to a 12-year-old and you have 30 seconds. And I'm sure you've done this before, but I'm kind of putting you on the spot here. And then maybe I'll ask you to flesh it out a bit. So in 30 seconds or less, how do you explain Bitcoin to a 12-year-old?
I think I would start by saying it's a digital token that is backed by the work that it takes to produce it. And I would leave it at that. I would say it's something that exists only in digital form, which I think for a 12-year-old requires no explanation because they understand digital scarcity already. They understand digital commodity. And then where they would get lost, I think, is which is backed by the work that it takes to produce it.
And if we were to go for a bit of a longer explanation, the way I would like to ask it to you is, considering Bitcoin has been around for almost 15 years now, 2008, 9, correct me if I'm wrong, what is still, if anything, revolutionary about Bitcoin today, so 15 years after its creation?
Yeah, the proof of work, I think, is it. I mean, Bitcoin didn't invent anything. Bitcoin has been, yes, it came, the first block was mined in 2009, but Bitcoin's been centuries in the making, back to the encryption protocol that it uses, and into, the double spend problem that's been around for 50 years. And all of that led up to proof of work, which is the concept that a machine needs to spend energy to solve an algorithm, or to guess and check an algorithm is probably the better way to put it, in order to receive a benefit and receive a reward. And that proof of work is the single greatest innovation that Bitcoin brought into the world, and then I think will ever give us. And all the things that come around with us, right? Philosophically, that means it's censorship resistant. That means it's permissionless. That means it's inclusive. It gives us all these positive attributes because of the proof of work.
And what would you say today is the biggest misconception about Bitcoin, or something that you believe, even after 15 years, most people or many people still really don't understand about Bitcoin?
That's definitely changed over my, like, I've been in this space for 10 years, and I'd say over the last 10 years that answer has changed. And when it first started out, the common theme was it's not backed by anything. But I think that narrative of, like, everyone kind of knows the money is not backed by anything anyways. So I think that's largely been fine. But the narrative,
you really think most people know that?
You know what? Great challenge. Maybe not. Maybe it's such that most people that I talk to, or people have heard me say that enough that they're not willing to challenge me anymore that it is backed by something. But I think people know. Like, I mean, look right up there. That's the first instance of the gold standard being removed way back in the 30s. And then all the way up from into the 70s when the gold standard was officially snipped. And so I think that for the most part, people understand, but the existing fiat monetary system is so complicated and convoluted and manipulated and secret that you're probably right. Most people don't know it's backed by thin air or nothing. But I do think people know that, all the money doesn't actually just exist. It is a little bit fairy dust. And so I also think that, the fact that Bitcoin, it's difficult, although not impossible, for people to hold two opposing views at the same time. One being Bitcoin is backed by nothing, and the other being Bitcoin takes too much energy. Like, those two things are in direct opposition of each other. You can't believe one if you believe the other is true. You have to kind of pick a camp.
Well, and simply put, someone would also say that mining or extracting oil or creating, all sorts of other energies, I mean, everything requires some input to get to that output. I mean, nothing really materializes by itself. Is that a fair point?
That's the essence of our life. I mean, if you sit on a couch and do nothing all day, you won't be able to eat at night. That is let's go back to our ancestors. If you didn't leave your cave, you didn't eat because you didn't hunt.
That's what I call entrepreneurship. When people ask me, you eat what you kill.
You eat what you kill, man. That's exactly it. And it's shocking how many people don't believe that. But then, so today, I think, kind of back to the point, I think that today the misconception is that Bitcoin is bad for the earth. Bitcoin is the single greatest opportunity this earth has for climate, whatever stance or viewpoint you have around climate change. If you believe that humans have an impact towards the changing climate of the earth, you should be heavily in favor of Bitcoin, because it is the only asset, the only industry, Bitcoin mining, the only industry truly incentivized to innovate in that space. And you don't need a government subsidy. You don't need some kind of philanthropy. You can be a hardcore capitalist and innovate in renewable energy and be rewarded only with Bitcoin. So I think that right now that is the most common misconception, and people, uninformed individuals, will tell me, "Oh, it's so bad for the earth," and I have like just come on, let's think about this for more than 8 seconds.
Sounds like you were gonna say I have no time for them, but you probably have to.
I usually have time for it, and I do enjoy talking about it because it's nice to see people, have like be educated and then change their opinion. What challenges me is when like you tell someone facts and they just refuse the facts. That is quite challenging.
Does it get frustrating 11 years in to continue to have to advocate or evangelize or just, as you said, present facts to people? Because, I mean, most people are very stuck in their ways. All of us are, really. And so, you talked about the two fact opposing views, and we have so much cognitive bias, right? Does that sometimes get to you, or are you like, yeah, I don't know. How do you look at that?
Yeah, no, not so much. And I think the reason is because, like, 10 years ago, you had to have a tinfoil hat on to believe the things that I believed, right? Yeah, why on earth would a government, just randomly shut down your bank account? Why wouldn't the money in your bank be there? Why would a government print endless money and bankrupt their economy? Why would a government do all the things that I was saying would happen? Like back in 2015, 2016, I sounded like a nut job. Like and people called me out on it, and
At
I
least
said,
you know.
at least I know exactly. And I kind of told them, I said, just watch. Like this will happen. This has happened throughout history. History always repeats. Just watch. This is going to happen again. And sure enough, here we are in 2023. We've witnessed 2,000 citizens have their banks shut down for donating money to a protest. I thought we lived in a country that embodied and enjoyed the opportunity to protest. The government chose on a whim that it did not, and now 2,000 bank accounts seized. We've seen endless printing of money. The M0 money supply has more than tripled in the last 3 years. That means all of the money in circulation has tripled in the last 3 years. That's very bad. If you understand an ounce of supply and demand economics, you understand that more does not mean more. More, in fact, means less for everyone unless you are producing more at the same time. Yeah. And now, the banks are melting down south for the second time in 2.5 decades. Now it's like less about, oh, Adam, you're crazy, and more about, oh, hey, I wonder if there's an alternative to this manipulated ecosystem that we've called money for the last 100 years. And the obvious answer, of course, is Bitcoin.
Couple of sort of technical, practical questions. We like to do these educational pieces, and then let's get back into, finance and in the environment, since you brought it up. But I want to ask you this question. How do you see or describe the relationship between Bitcoin, crypto, and blockchain?
Great question. So this started like this. Actually, it started like this. Oh, I gotta use the wrong finger there. It started like this. It started as one. And then as we've matured and as each sector has matured, it is slowly, the chasm between the three is, the analogy is done now with my hands, but it's widening. And I think Bitcoin is primarily a financial asset savings tool. It's not an investment. You're not looking for returns. You're not looking for gains. How do I protect my wealth? Bitcoin. That's the only answer. It's Bitcoin. There's nothing you can do better than store your wealth, store your time, store your value in a sound asset backed by math.
But most people expect it to appreciate, though. That's fair to say, no?
I don't think so. I think if you ask them, I think they would say, yes, I need returns. But I think more than that, we don't want our stored time to depreciate. Now, what I mean by that is 50 years ago, you worked for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, and you could afford a 2-bedroom house. You could eat steak on Sunday night, and maybe you go to a hockey game, or you have an activity that you have a hobby that you enjoy.
Yeah.
Today, if you work 8 hours a day for 40 hours a week for a month, you can afford a 1-bedroom house. You eat steak once a month, not once a week, and one of you or your partner can enjoy a hobby. And so what we've actually seen, I haven't talked about hourly wage because hourly wages have gone up. I haven't talked about anything other than how much time, how much effort, how much work
Yeah.
have we put in to be able to afford these things. And so when we think about savings, we're not saving money because saving money is stupid. We don't need money. We need time. We need value in the future. And Bitcoin is a way to work in 2023. You don't spend all of your value from that work. You lock it in an asset, send it into the future so that in 2033, I only have to work 20 hours a week, but I can live like I work 40 hours a week. And there is no tool on planet Earth that locks and saves that time. I don't need 3000x returns. The gains and the returns, they're all a symptom of the fiat ecosystem. If you live in Venezuela, Bitcoin has had millions and millions and millions of percent returns, but you're not more wealthy, right? Like you're not actually functionally better off because of those millions and millions and millions of percent of returns. It's just that the counterlying asset, the opposite position, has just plummeted. And so, good job for exiting that. But we're not looking for returns. We're looking to lock and store our value. And I would say that is what Bitcoin is. Crypto, on the other hand, big casino. Let's hunt for gains. Fiat mindset, short-term thinking, high time preference. Crypto is the stock market for my younger generation. It is no holds barred. We're looking for gains and returns, high risk. Where I would say Bitcoin is completely the opposite. Savings tool, low time preference, thinking into the future. No one's talking about passing Ripple down to their great grandkids, right?
It's almost like a hot potato.
It's like a hot potato. It's like, who's the sucker that I can pass this off to since I got it passed to me? Whereas Bitcoin is like, how do I stack as many sats as possible so my great grandson can live a life that I could never dream of, right? That's the mindset of Bitcoiners. Cryptos, it's like, yeah, big returns fast and hurry up before the rug gets pulled. So it's that chasm is widening quite dramatically. And then blockchain's like the internet protocol. It's like, it's there, it exists. Not everything needs to be on a blockchain. Blockchain's not going to solve all of our problems, but it's good that it's there. The fact that it's decentralized, is the most important part of a blockchain. When RBC tells me we're making blockchain, it's like, yeah, but it's closed loop and I have no visibility to it. So what good is it? The point of a blockchain is it's a publicly auditable database. That's all it is. Publicly auditable database. It removes the single point of failure. What it also does is it clogs up the innovation and makes it much harder to build. So again, all these companies that are adopting blockchain, they have to understand what that means. It means no more secrets. It means no hiding anything. And it means prepare to slow down.
Are there any other cryptocurrencies, if I put Bitcoin and Ethereum and XRP and all the others that are out there, I think 20,000 or something crazy like that, that you are actually interested in, or are you what some would call a maxi?
100% a maxi, man. Only because I already have enough risk in my life. I own a large percentage of this company that I run that's publicly traded. That's my high risk. Lucky for me, I also control it. I also have the ability to make the decisions. I'm the last line of defense. I'm the guy where all the everything falls or everything gets built. It's all on me, and that's good. That's an appropriate amount of risk for me. But every ounce of money that I want de-risked, that I want to have no risk to, it goes into Bitcoin. And
does that literally mean that other maybe than the home you live in? Sorry to interrupt you. It goes to Bitcoin or
everything? Yeah, 100%. And if I could. I've actually shopped around my primary residence. I would rather rent my primary residence and own more Bitcoin than own my house that I live in. Homes are a terrible investment. I've had this conversation with many real estate, and actually we've got a new landing page that I'm going to start leaning into a little bit more. Bitcoinwell.com/real estate. I want to start leaning into this Bitcoin versus a house, Bitcoin versus apartments, Bitcoin versus condo blocks.
Mm.
There are benefits to both, but I think there's key differences, and the longer time frame you take, the more you lend towards Bitcoin, or the more you tend to like Bitcoin a little bit more favorably. Anyways, I think that
No, that
yes, like to answer your question, I guess a little bit more directly, 100% of my savings goes to Bitcoin.
Well, that gives me the idea. I was going to say of maybe a debate at some point. That'd be great to bring on a big real estate expert, Canadian or otherwise, and have you guys kind of, and maybe we could even do a series of debates like that, right?
I
On the
would
different
love
topics.
that. I think it's really really fascinating. Bitcoin and real estate are so similar, and those that are invested in real estate understand the principles behind Bitcoin so well. But ultimately, they favor cash flow, which is fine. Cash flow is very
Yeah.
important, but you have to understand that you're trading certain properties for cash flow, which throughout history and throughout time often can come back to bite you in the ass.
Yeah, yeah. Well said. Well said. By the way, the links that you mentioned are more than welcome, and they will be either on screen or in the description. We're all about education, and I know that Bitcoin Well as well is about much more than just buying and selling Bitcoin. So, well, quick, by the way, intervention for our audience. If you're enjoying this interview, give us a like. You know how it works. The algorithm will favor this interview and spread it to the world. Subscribe to our channel. We really appreciate it. And stay till the end because I will be asking Adam for his 2023 predictions. So I want to ask you a little bit about Canada. Canada was once seen as a leader or maybe even the leader in blockchain, switching gears a little bit since it's in our name. I can mention many things. Most people know them already. I guess my question very simply is, are we still leaders? Is our government or our governments, since we're quite decentralized in that sense, favorable to blockchain, to crypto, to Bitcoin? And if not, what would you say to them? What do we need to do as a country to sort of, take advantage, position ourselves for the future, and ultimately benefit our people? Because I guess if we don't, others will just bypass us,
They will for sure, and I think that's the beauty of an open market is that it causes competition amongst governments, which is important. That's very important, I think. Are we leaders? I would say yes. Now, and again, this is kind of where that chasm maybe that I'm talking about. I'm a lot less involved in blockchain than I am in Bitcoin. And
Okay.
5 years ago, that didn't make sense, right? 5 years ago, I was like, wow, that's all the same thing. What are you talking about? But today, we understand that a little bit better. Are we leaders in blockchain in this country? Yes, I do believe so. I think like the Canadian Blockchain Consortium does an incredible job engaging and educating our government. That's dynamite. I think they do a really good job there.
Shout out to Kalea and Jade and the team there. Yeah, we like them a lot too.
Yeah, dynamite. So huge shout out to them and the work that they're doing. I think the government still has a long way to go to differentiate Bitcoin and blockchain. And again, like blockchain, in my opinion, is a much smaller industry than people have cracked it up to be over the last 5 to 7, 8 years. I think people have confused Bitcoin with blockchain. I don't think people want blockchains. Blockchains are loaded, they're expensive, they're slow. Blockchains are good for security, good for public auditability, good for many different things. But the speed and convenience that this world demands, they're not that good for that. And that's evidenced by Ethereum. I think evidences that perfectly. Ethereum is way too decentralized to be efficient, right? And it's also way too centralized to be safe. And so it's stuck in this middle ground where it's this like Web3 pioneer. It's all the things that blockchains are supposed to be, and it fails constantly. It's not secure whatsoever, especially after the proof of stake mess. It's slow, it's bloated when it's peaking, it's expensive to use. And so I think again, the concept and the promises of blockchain are the epitome of like what the crypto industry is, which is a bunch of promises, a bunch of technical jargon that nobody really understands, with an inability to execute and produce. And I think that blockchain as a whole is important, but we got to understand why do we want a blockchain? Because it's not to make things faster and it's not to make things easier. You need, like, think about the internet. Over time, the internet obviously made things a lot faster and easier. But up at the front, up at the start, it's a significant investment in order to do that. And I think,
Yeah.
I've yet to see an example where the blockchain will act as it's supposed to, which is as a publicly auditable function, and make things faster and easier. Because you kind of got to decide, what do you want, security or convenience? And depending on where you want on that spectrum, a blockchain may not be the right move.
Right. Sounds like we may have to change our name sometime. Maybe we'll be Bitcoin North after this interview. I mean, we'll see how people react, right? And we'll also see. No one has a crystal ball, right? We'll see how the world will unfold. I do want to ask you. So at the beginning of the interview, we mentioned, Silvergate and Silicon Valley Bank, and basically the banking sector in the U.S. and especially the one that is most supportive of crypto. But of course, also other traditional banks like Credit Suisse are in crisis. There is also, I think most people would recognize, some kind of an environmental crisis going on, whichever exact definition you wanna give to it. And you did say earlier that actually Bitcoin provides a solution. So I'm wondering about what basically stands in the way of the world embracing it. And I'm talking about blockchain in the broad sense, but feel free to talk about Bitcoin. Why isn't, I guess vested interests would probably be a big part of it.
Certainly politics is in the way,
Okay.
for sure. I think too, again, blockchain and Bitcoin are two different things. Like, what's preventing Bitcoin is the fact that if the central banks around the world lose their power and grip over their citizens, which is the money, they're going to lose power and control. And so that's getting in the way of, I think, our governments and central banks kind of installing Bitcoin, as you might expect to see. What's getting in the way of blockchain? I think it's back to what I said. It's like people have maybe looked at it and maybe wanted to embrace it, and then realized, like, oh, our internal databases actually perform much faster, and they're way less safe, they're way less secure, there's single points of failure everywhere. But people don't actually care about security. People don't actually care about how safe my shipped product is, how safe the food, like the farm to table journey was for food. They want it fast, cheap. They don't necessarily that it's good. And fast, cheap, and good. Pick two. Blockchains make things very good and very slow and expensive. And so I think that what's preventing the world from embracing blockchain is the value prop of a blockchain is a little bit more towards security in a world that doesn't really value security yet. And I think it will change, right? I mean, look at the last 15 years. Nobody really cared about Bitcoin. I mean, I told you I was called crazy for even hinting that the banks might fail, even hinting that the banks might freeze your funds illegally. And here we are, it happened. And so the value prop for Bitcoin shines. All of a sudden, people, I mean, even look at our business. We're a non-custodial Bitcoin platform. My investors, my bankers, even some employees in the past have wondered, why aren't we custodial? It's easier, it's faster, it's cheaper to run. We should be custodial. And the answer is, that's not safe. And it's like, oh, look, everyone's FTX is fine. This is all good. Binance is there and they're good. ShakePay is there and they're good. And my response is always, but it's not safe. It doesn't, and I mean, look, we're smaller than all of the companies. Well, FTX is zero now, so we're bigger than FTX, I suppose, but only because they were the first to drop. And I think it's just important to me to remain true to our values and to emphasize safety. And now, finally, 10 years in, this business is 10 years old. The non-custodial messaging, the non-custodial business practices, the non-custodial way that we've been running the business for a decade is shining. And it will be even longer, I think. Like, I'm very philosophical and I'm deep, deep, deep in this industry with my beliefs. You know, the CEO at UPS, or USPS or Canada Post, who told his investors, we're going to blockchain everything, it's going to be faster and better for everyone, is now realizing, actually it's not, but it'll be very safe. And then everyone's like, but my package is going to cost $1,000 to ship and it'll be safe? I don't care. Give me some insurance. Make that cheap and fast, right? And so I think that's probably a little bit of what's going on.
I want to give you a couple of minutes to talk about Bitcoin Well, of course. Correct me if I'm wrong, but listed on the TSXV since July 2021, so going on 2 years. That fact alone, actually, that a crypto company, as you said, on a maybe somewhat smaller scale, is listed. There aren't that many crypto listed companies in the world. And I know you prefer me to use the word Bitcoin, but for the audience,
no. Well, you can wrap us into maybe fintech or crypto as a whole.
I didn't say fintech. I think that's too broad. But I mean, in an industry that is often accused for being, opaque, and you look at, I won't name companies, but quite a few companies are accused of not being transparent, and yet you're a listed company. Has that been net positive, notwithstanding the short term, challenges that any business is facing, of course, or is it complicated for you to be listed?
Oh yeah, very, very complicated. Getting listed was complicated. Right. Actually, Dave, who our Chief Revenue Officer, and I were chatting this morning, and we both acknowledged that going public was the most expensive clout we could have ever bought. It cost us like, it was a heavy 7-figure bill just to go public. And we have not been able to, the point of going public obviously is to raise money, and we have not been able to raise money as part of a public vehicle. So yes, that's been difficult. However, what it has done is it's given us credibility to the point where our banking partner right now, the only reason we are there first, and right now I think they're only, or maybe they've opened up the program to a few others, we were their pilot. They chose us to bank with them.
Can you share who it is?
No. They've asked that we keep it a little bit quiet.
Is it a Canadian bank or is it an Alberta bank?
Alberta bank. And they chose Bitcoin Well to be a partner because they wanted someone who was doing things right, who had good business practices, and who could help teach them this industry. Our armored car, same thing. We were the first company, or the first Bitcoin ATM company to be partnered with this national armored car organization because we're public. The fact that we'll be announcing shortly that we're going to be expanding certain parts of our business, and those are only made possible because we're public, because the partnerships that come alongside this sketchy, tainted industry brought to you, with a company that's done things right for 10 years. Like, sure, we are not as big as we could be if we would have had snake oil to sell and custodial fiat-minded business practices. But we've stayed the course. There's been times when we've been profitable. There's been times when we've grown into new levels of profitability. There's been times like we've just been making, we've made good and bad decisions, of course, but both have been surrounded around a Bitcoin mindset and a Bitcoin philosophy. And I think that's been a big part in our ability to grow right now when other companies are not growing.
Can you share anything on those few announcements or initiatives that you're working on right now? Anything that you can share now?
I was about to, and one of them is live. It's a little bit sneaky live. There will be some press releases going out as a result. But Bitcoin Well will be launching in the USA as a non-custodial Bitcoin platform this spring. So later this spring, U.S. citizens will have the ability to buy Bitcoin in the safest way possible. And it's very important to me that we emphasize self-custody as part of that expansion. We're going down with a partner who's going to be helping us with liquidity as well as with with compliance and making sure that everything's buttoned up properly. Because as you can imagine, it is very, very difficult to manage. The way the US does things is quite a bit different than Canada. But yeah, I'm very excited to be able to offer our non-custodial, safe way to buy Bitcoin, our personal services, having somebody there, a Bitcoin specialist, ready to hold your hand through your first transaction, give you, all kinds of confidence and education to walk you through your Bitcoin journey. It's very exciting to be able to offer that in the States. So yeah, we're
Congrats. That's amazing. It's always exciting when we hear a Canadian company that, managed to, sort of penetrate the US market. It's much harder than most people imagine. The regulations are so different, et cetera, et cetera. Very competitive, of course. Final question. What are your top 3 predictions for Bitcoin, for crypto, for blockchain, as you like? Top 3 for this year and the next few?
Great question. It's funny. I used to do a lot of predictions, and lots have been right, lots have been wrong. So take everything I say with a grain of salt. I think we're going to see at least one other like massive crypto exchange have a run, and that's probably negative. I think that custodian fiat practices, we have not seen the contagion run out yet. So that's kind of more of a negative one. I also think we're going to continue to see Bitcoin within local communities and local economies thrive. And I'm not talking about North America. I'm not sure if maybe you saw Kinetic Finance, Julian from Kinetic Finance and I, we went to Guatemala in December. And we went to a little town called Panajachel, which has a Bitcoin circular economy. Not government funded, totally grassroots initiative by a Texas citizen who funded this project, is funding this project. I think we're going to see more little Bitcoin circular economies pop up. We're seeing nation states melt down at a faster rate than ever before. I mean, going back just a decade, we've got Cyprus, Turkey, Greece, Nigeria right now.
Turkey,
Lebanon. We're seeing meltdowns of fiat currency, and as that happens, it used to be a surprise to me when Bitcoin traded at a 50, 60, 100% premium in these nation states that are failing. Now it's just like, oh, Bitcoin's trading up in Africa. I bet the banks are melting, and that's the reason. So people are rushing into Bitcoin, and I think that will continue to happen, hopefully without the nation states. And then my third prediction, this is not even a prediction, this is just a fact. You can take this to the bank. There will be a new Bitcoin block mined every roughly 10 minutes. That one we can hang all of our hats on it. We can take that to the bank, cash our checks. Bitcoin's going to continue to run. China will probably ban it. Someone else will call it a scam. It will be bad for the environment, good for the environment, whatever narrative the mainstream uninformed media wants to spit out. It won't matter. There will be a new Bitcoin block every 10 minutes on average for the next 3 years, I will say. Probably longer.
And of course, none of this is financial advice. But Adam, thank you so much for taking 40 minutes. It's a true in-depth and fairly candid conversation as well. Where can people find you, by the way? What would you like us to sort of link to for people to learn more about your work, the educational work you do as well?
Yeah. So for the company, go visit bitcoinwell.com. It doesn't matter who you are. If you are someone that wants to buy Bitcoin with privacy in mind, we can help you. Someone who needs help with their Bitcoin journey, we can help you. Someone who wants to buy Bitcoin online with the fastest, safest, and right now the cheapest way to buy Bitcoin online with Interac e-transfer at bitcoinwell.com. So go visit that out. If you like me, if you like some of the stuff I'm saying, I've been starting to do a little bit more with some of these thoughts that I have. Obviously, lots of the thoughts that I have don't fit right into a Bitcoin company, and so getting my voice out there. So go to adamobrien.ca. You can read my blog. You can follow me on Twitter. You can watch my YouTube videos, and you can book me for more conversations like this. I love having conversations flow. I think you're a dynamite. You're a good interviewer. You got good questions and very thought provoking. So I really appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And to our audience, if you enjoyed this video or if you want to support us, as I said, on our mission to educate, to inform, to inspire people about blockchain, but also, and very importantly, to give Canada a voice globally. That is a really, really important part of our mission. Make sure to like this video so more people can see it. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel to stay updated on all of our interviews and other educational videos that we have coming up. You can, of course, also follow us on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on TikTok. And that's it, Adam. It's been fantastic to pretty much replicate the conversation we had a couple of months ago. This one is recorded. Look forward to speaking with you again. To everyone, stay safe and just go and enjoy yourself a little bit. I think that's what life is ultimately about. Take care and thank you, everybody. Bye, Adam.